Welcome to a lesson in English grammar, where today we're going to be talking about how you change the voice of sentences. You may also know this as a topic called active and passive voice. Okay, now this is something you may have been doing over the years, and for some of you it may also be intuitive, which is fine, but there may be difficulties, especially when it comes to changing the verb and stuff like that in this topic. So this is a three-part video. Okay, in the first part we're going to be revising the basics. The second part is the changing from active to passive, and the third part is the changing from passive to active. Okay, let's get started with the basics of the three parts of a simple sentence is the subject, the verb, and the object. So basically the three parts are: subject is the one who does the action, the verb is the action, and the object is the one who receives the action. There is no hard and fast rule that a subject has to be a person and object has to be a thing. It can be either. Okay, subject can be a person and or a thing. The object same way can be a person. Object can also be a thing. Okay, so whoever is doing the action, the person or the thing responsible for causing the action is called the subject. The person or the thing who gets the action, who has the action done on them or done on it, is called the object. You can pause the video here and look at the three sentences at the bottom of the screen and see if you can split them into subject, verb, and object. Okay, remember that it's not always that the subject comes first and the object comes last. Okay, in certain cases the object may come before the subject as well. So look at the first sentence. Hitchcock directed the film Psycho. First look for the verb. The verb is directed. Okay, who is directed? Hitchcock, so becomes the subject. What is directed? Okay, what has received that action of being directed is the film, so that becomes the object. Okay, we study French. What is the verb? Study. What is the action? Study. Okay, who's doing the action? By what is the action being done? We. Okay, so that's the subject. What is receiving the action of being studied, or what is being studied, is French, so that is the object. The last one, the roads will be repaired by the government. What is the action being done here? Repaired, so that's the verb. Who is doing the repairing? The government, so that is the subject. Okay, what is being repaired? The roads, so that is the object. So you can see here it's in the form subject verb object. Here again it's in the form subject verb object. Here it's in the form object verb subject. So either can come first. Okay, and also remember the first point is either can come first, and the second point is subject and object can be persons as well as things. Okay, don't be under the impression that because object it means it has to be a thing. Okay, an object can be a person as well. Now let's look at the difference between the active voice and the passive voice, that you know the difference between subject and object. In the active voice, more importance is given to the subject. The subject is placed before the object in the active sentence. Okay, so the active sentence takes the form like the subject followed by verb and then the object. So let's look at each of these sentences, okay, and try to figure out why it's an active sentence. They play video games. Play is the verb. Who is playing? They. So that's the subject. Subject before the verb, active. Someone was ringing the doorbell. The verb is ringing. Who is ringing? Who is responsible for the ringing? Someone. Subject before verb, active. He will clean the house before the guests arrive. Will clean is the verb. He is the subject. Subject before verb, active. Okay, your behavior has disappointed me. Has disappointed is the verb. What has disappointed or who has disappointed? Behavior. So behavior is the subject. Subject before the verb, active. The invigilators are supervising the candidates. The verb is are supervising. The invigilators are doing the supervising, are responsible for the supervision. So that's the subject, active, because the subject is before the verb. His words conveyed a depth of meaning. Conveyed is the verb. His words are the subject. Okay. What is conveying? His words are conveying. So that's the subject. Okay. Active sentence. You can see in all these sentences the subject has come before the verb. The importance is given to the subject doing the action. Okay. So all these sentences are in the active voice, and you can also find the objects, but the objects are not really important in the active voice. Whatever I'm putting in boxes are the objects. Okay, Now let's go to the passive voice. What is the passive voice? The passive voice gives more importance to the object rather than the subject. Okay, so it's exactly the opposite. In the active voice, the subject is given importance. In the passive voice, the object is given importance. So your sentence takes the form object followed by verb followed by subject. Most often you will also find the word by being used in the passive sentence. Okay. Now, there are also cases where you don't know the subject. Okay, for example, someone has stolen something of yours, someone is knocking at the door. Okay, you don't know who's doing the action. That may be one thing. The second thing, maybe it's not important who's done the action. So, for example, the room was cleaned. Okay, in this case, do you know who's done the action? Is it mentioned in the sentence? No. Now, there may be two possibilities. Either you don't know who's cleaned the room, or you know, but it's not important to mention who has done the cleaning. The fact is that the room is clean. Okay, so the importance is given to the room, not who cleaned it. That's not important. So you need not even mention who has done the cleaning. Okay, so you use the passive voice in cases where the subject is not known, where you don't know who's done the action, or you don't want the reader to know who has done the action because it's not important. The action itself is more important than who has done it. Okay, so the object is placed before the subject. In certain cases, the subject is not even mentioned in the passive sentence. The suspect was being questioned by the police officers for over an hour. Was being questioned is the verb here. Okay, who is being questioned, who is receiving the questioning, the suspect. So that's the object before verb, passive. Who is doing the questioning? The police officers, subject. Okay, so you can see it's in the form of object verb subject. Okay, and separated with the word by. The crooks were beaten up by who? Beaten up is the verb. Who are beaten up? The crooks. Who is receiving the beating? The crook. So that's the object, passive. Who is doing the beating? She is doing the beating. Her. So that's the subject. The new system is implemented. Now in this case you will see implemented is the verb. What is implemented? What is receiving the action? The new system. So that is the object. Is the subject mentioned? No. Okay, so it could be the government who's implementing the system, the local authorities, the company, the school. Okay, it can be anyone who's implementing the system, but that's not important. So it's either not known who's implementing the system or is not important who's implementing the system. So in this case we use the passive voice. Okay, so there is no subject here, but you still see that the object is before the verb. Okay, the cats had been chased away by the dogs. Chased away is the action. Who or what is chased away? The cats. Object is before the verb. Who is doing the chasing? The dogs. So that is the subject. Science will be taught by Mr. Jacob. What is the action? Teaching. What is being taught? Science. Okay, so science is the object. Object has come before the verb. Who is doing the teaching? Mr. Jacob becomes the subject. They will be shocked by the developments. What is the verb? To be shocked. Who or what is going to be shocked? They. So this becomes the object. Okay, and what is doing the shocking? The developments are doing the shocking. So that becomes the subject. Okay, object before the verb, passive voice. So remember, the active voice is of the form subject verb object. Passive sentences of the form object verb subject, and sometimes you may not even have the subject when it's not known or when it's not important. That's it for this video. I'll see you in part 2 where we discuss the change from active into passive. Thank you.